In this lesson, I will show how you can create value scales in graphite and charcoal. Let's first prepare your materials. You need your drawing pad, different types of leads, various types of erasers, including the plastic needed, the precision eraser, different types of charcoal pencils you have, including the peel off and the regular charcoal pencil, and that's all you need for this exercise. So later when you're ready to create the rows on your drawing pad, please pause this screen and use this diagram as a reference. Okay, so first prepare your materials by sharpening them, shaping them in an intentional way, and make sure the tip is pointed. Sharpened pencil enables you to create a more of refined and controlled type of lines for shading. Charcoal pencils can be sharpened with handheld sharpener. When you're ready to draw in the rows, go back to the previous diagram and pause the screen for your reference. So what I'm doing right now is marking 1 inch from left and right, putting tick marks first on various locations and then just connecting the dots to draw a straight line. So it's 1 inch on the left, 1 inch space on the right, 1.5 inch border on the top. And then I'm just making tick marks on every 1.5 inch to space my rows out evenly. So I'm just making tick marks at 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, and so on. And then I'm just connecting those dots together to create rows of rows that have 1.5 inch as the height. Now you need to have 10 squares in each row, and they need to be 1.5 inch wide. So I'm making tick marks again at every 1.5 inches and connecting those dots together. I'm only drawing in wherever my value scales will be. The 3 gaps in between are just for spacing purpose. When you do this, don't apply too much pressure because these guys are as reference only and these are not a very important part of the finished value scale. Now number each square 0 through 9. You can write the numbers in the negative space. 0 to 3 are considered light value, 4 to 6 mid-tone, 7 to 9 dark. So mark accordingly. Now start with the hardest type of lead you have. The hardest type of lead I have is HB. So start with HB and put very light layer for 1, 2 light layers for value 2, and then 3 light layers of value 3. The values 0 through 3 are considered the light values. For 0 square, you can leave it blank. So 0 being a completely white space that's not touched. And then the value you want to increase by the same increment. You can think of this as a staircase. So there are the steps are going up by the same amount of length every time. For the midtones, I changed the type of pencil I'm starting with. So I'm starting with 2B. And using cross-hatching and various length of strokes, I'm filling in as much as I think it should be filled in to achieve certain value. And then I'm also just continuing to layer. If my shading needs any definition, or I want to smooth out the irregularity of the shading, I like to layer the harder type of leads on top of the base. So from 4 through 6, if you want more even type of shading, you can layer HB on top of the initial 2B base. As I'm moving towards darks, I'm mainly using the 4B pencil to do cross-hatching and building of the layer. Although I'm showing you the fast-forwarded version, this is actually a very slow process. You need to pay attention to the details when it comes to shading, pay attention to the craftsmanship so that you're able to produce a very good-looking value scales that you can even come back to reference later as you're completing your still life assignments. So when you complete this exercise, instead of thinking of this as an assignment that you need to submit, think of it as creating a permanent reference, something that you can continue to refer to as you're working on other value assignments. Okay, so going towards number 8 and number 9, I'm trying to achieve the darkest value possible that I can create with my graphite pencil. So I've introduced the 6B, did a lot of layers of 6B, and then layered 4B on top, and finally finished off with 2B. So for the second row, you're trying to mirror the values you created on top scale. So make sure that the values you have right now are good representation of what you are imagining. And if any part is dark than you like, you can just push down with the kneaded eraser, so that you can wipe off the value subtly and then go ahead and layer on top for a more smooth type of texture. So remembering the types of leads you use to achieve the value on top scale, you're just doing the same thing. However, this time the goal is to create a gradient. What I've done is I've taped along the edges, and I'm just mostly drawing a vertical stroke going towards the right, and then just building layers that way. So we're including cross-hatching here, so I'm actually working backwards from the darkest value and just going back and forth in the stroke so that it's creating a cross shape with my first layer. When you do this, you can also work more with the pressure you apply in hand because you already have the edges taped and you don't need to worry about making messy lines on the ends of the value scale. So you can work a little bit more with the pressure you apply to the hand and be slightly more bold with the shading you make. You can also do this in either direction. You can go from light to dark and then maybe address dark to light. And just like feel free to jump from here to there and move back and forth between each square. Now we are peeling off the tape, so just make sure that you're not pulling too hard and tearing the surface of the paper. Okay, now we'll move on to charcoal value scale. Again, the squares should be numbered from 0 to 9. 0 to 3 being the light values, 4 to 6 midtones, and 7 to 9 the darks. Number 9 should be the darkest possible value you can achieve with the given materials, and number 0 is an empty square. So I'm using my charcoal pencil and doing the lightest possible shading for square 1. Square 2 will be slightly darker than square 1, so you can control the pressure as well as the layers and the length of your strokes. And remember, when you're shading, regardless of the distance of your strokes, I encourage you to move in one single direction. We talked about this in the previous video, but it's good if you can move in one single direction instead of shading back and forth, so that you're able to produce a more controlled and refined lines within the given space. Now, as I'm moving towards the midtones and darks, I'm layering the charcoal pencil with the peel off charcoal pencil, which has slightly bigger lead compared to the first. With charcoal, you need to control the amount of pressure you apply to charcoal. Versus with the graphite, I would encourage you to be more aware of how many layers you can apply to achieve certain values. The range of values in charcoal is so much greater, so you also have to work with the amount of pressure that you apply on charcoal to achieve certain values. So for the fourth row, do the same thing as the second row. You're referring to the values that you created on the previous value scale and just mirroring that, except your goal is to create a gradation this time. So again, you can start with very light layers and then make sure it's increasing the value towards the right side, and then just continue on refining those values. And also pay attention so that there are no lines going down. You're not really seeing a clear boundary or definition between different shades, but the value is increasing rather more slowly and gradually towards the right side. Here I'm doing a lot of cross-hatching, and I'm using various types of length of strokes because my goal is to create a very smooth shading with charcoal, and I'm also trying to create a very smooth gradation. Now peel off the tape carefully, and you can erase any fingerprints or marks that are made on the negative space. So when you do this exercise, really consider the craftsmanship. Be very sensitive about the parallel rows. Make sure that they have even spacing. Make sure that the gradation is happening very slowly, and overall, the values are very clear and easy to understand.